everyone. Welcome to Empowering Exceptional Minds, the podcast diving into neurodiversity through real conversations with parents, individuals, and professionals on challenges, strengths, and unique experiences. I'm your host, Maayan Glazer-Koren, an educational therapist, ADHD educator, and ASD specialist. At Educational Therapy LLC, my private practice, we support kids and adults with executive function and learning differences toward confidence and independence. This podcast is a collaboration with Wiz Therapy, connecting individuals to providers and streamlining services for neurodiverse communities. Our goal is to share strategies, stories, and insights to empower families, educators, and professionals. Before we begin, a quick disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of this podcast or Wiz Therapy. The conversations here are for information and empowerment, not a substitute for professional or medical advice. And most importantly, if you are experiencing a mental health emergency, please dial 911 immediately, or you can text 741-741 to reach the crisis text line in the US for support. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Empowering Exceptional Minds. I'm Maayan Glazer-Koren, and today we are talking about something so many parents experience, but don't always talk about, which is parental burnout. So parenting can be rewarding, but it can also be relentless. For parents of neurodivergent children, the added advocacy, appointments, school challenges, and emotional demands, meltdowns at home can sometimes leave parents feeling completely depleted. But burnout doesn't mean you're a bad parent, not at all. It means you have been carrying too much for too long. And today I am joined by Roopa Belur, a clinical director, therapist, and founder of Belur Neurodiversity Consulting and Coaching. And with more than 23 years of experience supporting neurodivergent individuals and their families, Roopa brings wealth of knowledge about the realities of parenting, neurodiversity, and burnout. We'll talk about what parental burnout looks like and how to recognize the warning signs and what parents can do when they are running on empty. Roopa, welcome aboard. Did I forget anything?
Thank you so much. I just wanted to make one tiny correction, Maayan. I worked as a therapist in Canada. I'm not a therapist here, but right now I'm the founder of Belur Neurodiversity Consulting and Coaching, and I consult and coach with parents, children, adolescents, adults, couples that recognize as neurodivergent or diagnosed as with autism, ADHD. Yeah, that's kind of what I do right now.
Fantastic. Thank you for correcting me. So to start, I always like to ask it to my guests is if you can tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to your profession.
Certainly. I started, like in your introduction, you mentioned I started this journey about 24 years ago in Birmingham, Alabama. I started volunteering at a place called Autism Clinic for People, for adults and children. And this was run by a psychologist called Dr. Rebecca Dossett. So I owe a lot of what I know today to her, and I will continue to. What took me into this journey while I was working with Dr. Rebecca Dossett, Maayan, there was something so pure about autism. I don't know how to describe it better than purely the words pure, that there was just no looking back. I feel like our neurodivergent individuals have no malice, there's no hidden agenda, nothing. It's very simple, truthful, straightforward, and it's beautiful. And there's never been a dull moment, and there's still a lot more to learn in this journey. So in terms of who am I started this work about 24 years ago, and I've worked in various capacities, like you mentioned, as a clinical director, I did work as a therapist back in Alberta in Canada. I consulted with schools. And right now, I'm also consulting with schools, with parents, with children, adults who may identify as neurodivergent or want to talk about it. So that's kind of what I do, but no cookie cutter approach. I really individualize it, listen to people's stories, and work with that.
Yeah, I feel like for many of us, it comes from really the willing to help and really to um, make ones feel included, and that their voice is important no matter who they are. So I completely understand what you're saying, and the challenges that, trying to fit kids that are neurodivergent or adults in like a system that is not as inclusive. It brings a lot of anxiety. It can bring a lot of like mental health conditions and shame and
Absolutely.
masking. So there are, I mean, we can talk on it all day long, but there is definitely a pattern that I think all of us in this profession see, which is really high levels of anxieties also, um, but and the burnout piece. So because of your really vast experience, I'm very grateful to have you here to talk about the parental burnout, because we do talk about kids burnout a lot. I do talk about it with my students when I see them, but we don't have enough emphasis on the parent side and how difficult it is to be sometimes. And this is a podcast. It goes to we are shouting this. We are like to the world. We are broadcasting to the world. So whenever you are, if you're a parent of neurodivergent child, we completely understand the challenges that it can bring. And sometimes, you lose yourself with taking care of neurodivergent child. So what exactly is a parental burnout, and how is it different from the everyday stress and exhaustion that comes with being a parent?
Precise question, Maya, and I like it. The way I would define parental burnout is it's a constant state of emotional, mental, as well as physical exhaustion, but it's cumulative, it's built over time. To your point, you encounter stress every day, getting a call from school, pick up your child because he is not behaving or he, does not want to participate, doesn't want to transition, yada, yada, yada. So that is the stress for the Thursday, for example, right? Along with many other stresses like keeping up your job, paying bills, doing laundry, and taking care of other children. And for many people, they've also spoken about how they have to take care of their aged parents as well. So that can feel like your stressor for Thursday or your Friday or a Sunday. But this is cumulative. It keeps adding up. And the reality is it does not get subtracted. I would say it exponentially gets added up. It feels like a lot when they're children. And then suddenly the world of supports is lost because the child is in high school and they need to learn to navigate it. And the funding is lost because now they're 18 and they're adults. So if you think about it, that it's building up constantly. So that's why I would call it a cumulative state of physical, mental, emotional exhaustion. And to be honest, I don't think most parents are even aware that they are in that state because they're just rolling with it every day. And the to-do list and the tasks in front of you, it does not end. It only increases. So that's in a nutshell. Again, it's not a very broad description. Like you said, I can go all day about the burnout, but it is extremely different from everyday stress. And the reason it's different is the way it gets manifested is also different. Some of those indicators can seem to mimic depression, but they may not be depression. There is the exhaustion, there is a bit of loss of interest in wanting to participate in something. I would also, a lot of parents have told me this verbatim, if I were to anecdotally tell you what they tell me, they talk about, Rupa, I feel a constant state of overwhelm. My brain can't rest. There are 20 clouds that I have to tackle, and all of them are just seeming harder and harder by the day, right? There is a sense of withdrawal, could be more irritability. Someone that's typically not temperamental can seem a lot more irritable, anxious, temperamental, and neglect. I think a big factor, Mayan, that also separates from everyday stresses. Um, People tend to neglect that self-care, neglect what is important to them. It's not intentional. It's just so, like I mentioned, people are not even aware that they are in that state. And that lack of self-care also impedes or interferes with your quality of care for your child. And there's no hidden agenda. There's nothing. It's something that most people don't even recognize for all the right reasons.
I think there is a name for that. A caregiver. I'm blanking on the name, but I know I read about that too.
Right. So there are a couple of names. We usually use the word caregiver burnout or carer burnout.
Right.
In a world where people take care of elderly, often a word used many years ago, which I think can be used in different dynamics as well, as you call it, compassion fatigue.
Yes.
Uh, right? So it's coming with so much love and care for your child, but the fatigue is an outcome, and it's understandable. It's a very natural outcome given the investment, time, and as well as the stress associated with it.
Okay, so let's say you're in this ongoing, and now we are recording this podcast where some schools are starting and or are about to start. And there is a lot of stress that comes as a parent, where it comes to the services that, and we're talking, in the US and Canada, there are services to support the child. I'm not going to get into that. So you're dealing with that. You're dealing with communicating what the child need to their teachers. And we talked about it in our previous episode, our last episode about transitions. And we also dealing with, you need to go to work as a parent, right? It's like you said, it's all the like house, functional house activities that we need to do to maintain a house, right?
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm gonna give an example. My children started school this week, and I found myself cooking at 10:30 p.m.
Right.
so that I can send food. So this is something that, and we work and we do all of these things. So what if you don't have the awareness that this is happening to you? How can we help parents that are listening to this podcast to develop the awareness of this is what is happening with you right now? What questions can they ask themselves?
A couple of thoughts that come to my mind, Maya, what we call stress. And if you're using the word stress every day or even thinking about it every day, to me, that is a red flag or an indicator that it's lasting too long. And, that's where I would advocate or propose that it's okay to seek help. What does that look like? Can everybody afford a counselor? Definitely not. Can everybody afford a therapist? Or what are the wait times for it? So factoring in all that, I think step one is awareness. And then the sense of acceptance that this is happening to me and it's not my fault. I am not responsible in any way to be where I am right now in this caregiver burnout, feeling exhausted or being upset. I think that sense of acceptance is very important. And I think to avoid that, or in a way, how can we mitigate it or reduce the chances, to answer your question, Mayan? Another thing is, what can I do to indulge in activities that I like regularly as a parent, right? Like, because it's so easy to not do that. And sometimes the honest truth is there's no time to do that. I want to go get my nails done, but really, where is the time between navigating, like you said, cooking a meal at 10:30 and then getting 10 phone calls from school, building an IEP plan, and maybe the child's calling you and saying, Mom, pick me up. I'm exhausted. I'm not having a good day. And that's the brutal truth that happens to several families. So it is hard, but if there's any way that you can delegate certain responsibilities to others, not every day, but as and when on day 5 that I feel like I'm very stressed, and can someone else pick up this one job of picking up my child or respite care? So my thought is, one, access as many supports the community can offer. And I know that can look different in every state. In the United States of America, it can look different in Canada, Europe, other parts of the world. But I'm trying to give you a very generic idea of what people can do, Mayan. And even if it means, no matter what the day looks like, but I'm going to give 20 minutes to myself to go for a walk and listen to rock music or Pink Floyd or soothing music. To everybody, that can look different. To some people, it could be a shower. To some people, it could be, being on a treadmill. Whatever works for each individual, given their socioeconomic makeup or what's available. I'm trying to constantly factor in single mothers here, or a single parent, father or mother, right? I totally respect that the dynamic there would be different. So my suggestion to them could be something completely different. But if there's any way people can intersperse on their calendar half an hour of their time, it's not going to take away the burnout, but it may reduce the magnitude of the impact of it.
Yeah, we thank you for this answer. I always say to parents that I speak with that it takes a village. I mean, we can't do it
Yes.
by ourselves, but we're not supposed to do it by ourselves. As humans, we need connections. And
Yeah.
one of the things is to reach out to your friends and like you said, people in your community, and people do want to help.
Yes.
And it's totally okay to ask for help. It doesn't mean anything about your parenting style, about the way you are as a parent. It's really about helping yourself to get some energy and kind of the feel good
Right.
that happens for you. And it's like you said, it can look differently. It doesn't mean you need to now. I always use my sewing as an example because for me, I love
Mhm.
sewing. I have a sewing machine, but I even told it to my client yesterday. But for me to take the sewing machine from the room and put it on the table and then start sewing is effort. And
Exactly.
some
Yeah.
days it's just not going to work, even though it's my self-care. Some days it's just like, no.
Right.
And if it's
Right.
just,
Yeah.
watching my favorite TV show and close the door, that's what's going to help me, then I'll do that. Or like I said, move the body, go for a walk, breathe,
Right.
open the window, look outside. Just do these kind of
Right.
resets. It can be very, very helpful and be in touch with your community.
Absolutely. And another important point, Maya, and I want to add there is that self-care can look different. I had a parent who told me, Rupa, for me, my self-care is shutting all the blinds, making it as dark as possible, and just sleeping. But that's not right. I'm not being productive, is what she mentioned. And I also think the society's narrative that is being imposed upon us as human beings, with or without neurodivergence, is all about productivity. What is the output? How are you optimizing? If you think about all the language, right? And that's the conversation we had over several sessions, is it is okay to shut down, or we can call that your decompression time every day. It is okay. You don't have to be productive, right? And I think that ties into what are those expectations we have of performance as parents? Sometimes I think that vocabulary needs to be rewritten, but even for that, you need a supportive community or a supportive therapist who really understands and respects a parent from their lens, but not from the lens of what is right or wrong sitting in a clinic, right? You really need to value each individual's journey, because what works for them could look very different from what works for someone else. But I think rewriting that narrative about expectations, performance is very important in a very supportive manner.
I'm so happy you said that right now, because I'm going in my mind and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, the amount of time that my husband took the kids somewhere and I had the time all by myself for like 2 hours over the weekend. And all I was thinking was like, okay, what can I do now? I can cook. I can do the dishes without interruptions. I can do this. I can do that. I felt like the need to be, like you said, productive, though my
Right.
body was signaling slow down. Never my husband was expecting me, right, to do these things.
Right.
But in my mind, it was like this blame that, oh, I should not sit, the should, could, would. I should not sit on the couch right now and watch TV. Or I should just go and do whatever I need to do because my partner or my mom or somebody took the kids to do XYZ. Or my friend took the kids or whatnot, right? So there is, I feel like it's like you said, there is in the society that we live in, specifically to us, is the need to be productive, the need to run after your own tail, I would say, to kind of, you go in circles and you don't slow down. And then the guilt,
Yes,
that self-talk.
absolutely. And that turns into shame, Maya.
Yeah,
It's all
because they will say
interconnected,
like,
right?
right, they will say, I was so lazy today. And everybody who knows me know that the word lazy is not allowed in my vocabulary because I don't believe in
Good.
laziness.
Yes.
And even when parents say that about their kids, I'm like, wait a minute. If you see your
Mhm.
kid doing nothing and just being on the couch, something is happening underneath that. They're
Right.
not being lazy. Something is up. We need to kind of investigate what is happening. So I completely understand what you say with the shame. And I'm very, you can hear it in my voice now. I know I'm like more passionate about this right now because I feel that myself as a neurodivergent person, that guilt of not getting up from the couch and do XYZ is something that many women my age are dealing with as parents. And they might be
Absolutely.
ADHD or autistic individuals.
Absolutely. And there's the emphasis, I grew up at a time where there was no social media, Maya, but what you and I are discussing about the productivity aspects and being the mother, or, I wrote a book, I raised 5 kids, and I keep this house perfectly clean. That's the kind of posts that are coming up on social media, and that doesn't help. It's very easy to tell somebody, oh, ignore those posts or don't do it. It has an impact somewhere, right? Like we're all human beings, and unfortunately, this world is very driven by these social comparisons, and social media is not doing any favor to add more degrees to the burnout that an individual is experiencing. It's really unfortunate, but it happens in real life.
And to our listeners who thinks that their house needs to look like a magazine, let me tell you this. A messy house is a house that people live in. I mean, I would
Absolutely.
love to have my kitchen clean 24/7, but the amount of time
Right.
that people are in my kitchen,
Exactly. I mean, it is one of the most utilized area of the house, right? Especially when you have or you're raising children. Not that that changes, but snack time and I'm hungry and something gets out and I find Oreo bags everywhere in my house, or pieces of chips that my dog is trying to clean up everywhere. So that's a house, that's a household, that's functional, and everybody does their best. I've actually heard so many moms in therapy come and tell me, I actually want to socialize, Rupa. I want to invite my friend, but I'm too ashamed to
Okay.
call somebody home because I know I'm going to be judged for this person who is going to be deemed again lazy, procrastination. Lots of fancy adjectives will come with it, right? And then the whole purpose of de-stressing, which is be with a friend, have a good time, is lost because you're already so worried about how do I come across. How is my living room going to be evaluated? So if you think about it, it's doing the opposite. It's adding layers to the pre-existing burnout, which becomes counterproductive.
And to my friends who are listening to this podcast right now, I want to be very clear. One of them very specific. I dropped by her house yesterday to pick up something, and there was a pile of dishes in her sink. And she says, "Don't look at this. I'm just like, I don't have time." And the cleaners were just, I'm like, that's fine. So you guys, I'm your friend, not because you're doing your dishes. You're not doing your dishes. I'm coming over because I want to spend time with you. So this is something that to all listeners out there, it's okay if you have dishes in the sink and it's like 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. or whatever time it is. It's fine. It means that you have a productive kitchen, a functional kitchen.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. I've often used this example, Mayan, where I talk about, plate versus platter, right? We try to fill our small plate as though we're trying to fill a platter. I'm guilty of it. A lot of us are. And then, when you try to put a lot of food in a small plate, it's going to be hard to finish it or it doesn't fit in. And we're working extra hard to push it in and work through it to finish it. And I think that's what is expected in our life is we fill in so much that I think it's time to treat a plate like a plate. It is very hard. It's easy for me to say this in the podcast to translate that into practical work. It's taken a lot of work for me. It's taken a lot of work for many people I know personally and professionally. It is in no way easy, but in terms of parents recognizing that sense of burnout, that's another thought I have is where can we divide responsibility to, right? As much as possible and redefine those expectations that it's okay not to do something. The child may not need to be registered in 10 classes or.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
And it's okay also to our listeners, because I just came back from a trip a few weeks ago. And I want to tell you that the suitcase stood full for 4 days until I was like, oh, wait, I need to do laundry. It's okay. You know what? I was so tired. I was so jet lagged. I was like, I don't have time for this. Nobody's
Exactly.
judging me and my full suitcase but myself. I'm not that person who will empty the suitcase right away because I'm too tired to deal with it.
That's okay. Yeah.
Okay, so why do you think parents, particularly parents of neurodivergent or high needs children, can be especially vulnerable to burnout?
Yeah, I think the journey starts right from that diagnostic point, or even before that,
Before,
Mayan, because I want to
yeah.
factor in, where we don't have the vocabulary or those long 3 to 4 year wait lists trying to figure out what is happening to my child. How can I get the supports? You need this letter, you need that letter, and this funding to get OTPT, right? So the journey starts right from there, from the time most often parents have described it as I knew my child was different. So it could be the stairs that you get at a playground. My child got diagnosed, but what's next? It's this ocean, this empty ocean of how do I swim to figure out where do I land, right? It's a really big one. So you're even before the diagnosis, you're tossed between professions: neurologist, pediatrician, occupational therapist, speech therapist. I'm just throwing in some names that I can think of, but I'm
Oh,
merely
I've
not
been
covering
there. I've been in
everybody.
that ocean, so I get it.
Yeah. And then once you find out their services, but also the reality is there could be discrepancies with what everybody's saying. Maybe the behavior specialist is asking a parent to do something. Someone else is saying something, whereas the class teacher is saying your child doesn't listen. Even I think about the nature of feedback. I did a small workshop for a few people many years ago about how can you give feedback to parents, because even when you go into that parent teacher meeting, your child was yelling, he interrupts, he doesn't want to make friends, he doesn't want to transition, he doesn't like this, he doesn't like math, and nobody. Yes, there are reality factors that one has to address, but it can be done more respectfully. And I'm just talking about all these layers that are just adding to the burnout, right? So the parent is driving back thinking, what do I do? What did I do wrong? In many cases, that's what many parents come and tell me, but where did I go wrong? What are some pieces that I did not pick up, right? And it's often, almost always, never the parents' fault. So there's this plethora of messages being bombarded by different professionals. I've even had parents come and tell me, my one of my child's therapists was a little upset with me because I'm not being consistent with the strategies. I'm not using the right visual schedules. I'm not saying the right thing. And I just tell them, you're being a parent. You have a household to learn, and you can't rewire your brain overnight. It's okay to take baby steps and do the best that you can. While you're building a visual schedule, you have two other kids who need your attention. One wants a bath, you have a job to go to. And I think a big source of parent burnout, Mayan, is also a lot of my parents talking about how they've had to quit their job or they've been fired because of the number of days that they've had to take time off or take an aspect of time off during the day to attend a meeting with school or another meeting. But they add up. You don't have any support within your city to take your children. And these are some small they're not even small, they're some big factors that lead to burnout. What about my financial stability in the house? How do we navigate this, right? Where most often it's the mothers, but I've had several parents where I've met them in different capacities where a parent has quit to navigate this world and raise their child. So there's so many factors that are contributing to it. And I think the burnout does not end in, just because a child has graduated high school. There's a whole other sea of burnout as to what next, because
Right.
everything is getting depleted with services. And what does that employment world look like? What does post-secondary look like for my child? And the empathy people have for somebody with a child, it just seems to disappear as these children turn into adults, which makes it extremely hard on the parents. There's a lot of judgment about independence, about why can't your child do this? And so that journey is a long drawn one, Maya, and the index of burnout is only going higher, if not for a step.
And I also want to, you know, um, emphasize that many kids that are neurodivergent also have health
Mhm.
challenges. So that takes a toll too. And this is something that we cannot ignore also, that we're also worried about their health and who will take care of them when I'm gone. So there is all of these, additional um, thoughts and legit worries that we deal with. So when a parent is already depleted, like completely depleted, what are some realistic things they can do to begin recovering without adding another task to their list?
Right. Again, that journey or my answer would be very different to every individual given the space of life that they're in, Maya. And maybe there are some parents who can afford financially to take some time off. I think there's something about that rest and like the word that you use, recovery, that is so important. But what that period of rest could look like is also not defined by a specific time. I would be very worried if I told a parent, oh, just take 4 days off and you'll be back. It doesn't work that way, as you're very well aware, right? So I think in terms of that full depletion, that sense of extreme exhaustion, emotional or mental, physical, or all of it, it goes back to what you were talking about, is where is that village? Sometimes there's no energy to seek the village because you're so tired, right? You don't know, whom do I trust in the village? Whom do I approach? Even initiating that is so hard. And this is where I think being proactive, for the lack of better words, it may not be the best word to describe Mayan, is where can I access those supports right from the get-go? So when you hit that sense of exhaustion, you have, even if it's two people, it may not be the biggest village, there is somebody to fall back on to say, I just can't function. And that's okay. But my child has to continue to do what they have to. Because if you don't do that, your quality of supports with your own child is going to take a beating as well. Naturally, if I'm in a pretty low state in my life, highly likely my interaction with my children is not going to be the greatest. And I think I have evidence of that in my own life as well. So it's, it's very hard to perform when there is no energy. It doesn't matter. We always think about physical energy because it's visible. After a workout, you're sweating, your face is flushed, and everybody sees it and say, oh, Roopa, rest. You need to rest, or you have a fever, you're unwell, you've broken a bone. There's a lot of empathy, but that is invisible. The emotional energy depletion is really invisible, and you're expected to perform, right? So I think thoughts there, Mayan, are with the diagnosis, is there an autism society or ADHD support group where you are? There are some free resources, as well as every time I've lived in a couple of places, Alabama, Boston, Edmonton, Alberta, now in Austin, Texas. And when you look up, there are some free resources. And I also would urge professionals to give a parent a good directory of resources. I don't think it has to be exhaustive with 300 names on it. That's too exhausting, but at least a narrow set of resources for, the Autism Society of Texas, for example, or there's a parental support group here. Those support groups are brilliant. Parents find so much comfort in talking to each other and those shared journeys and challenges, as well as happy moments, right? It's beautiful. So there are ways I think the professional world can empower our parents. Everything can fall on the parents too.
I agree with you 100%. I have stuff on my website, and there are free resources out there. So if you Google, like in my area, right, or in your area where you are at, especially in the US, there's CHAD, there's IDEA, there are so many places you can look at and see if they offer community get-togethers for parents. There is Parents Helping Parents. There are things out there, but I understand also just to Google or just to click, they'll just ask for the help. That's okay. Give yourself a few days to kind of try to recharge, and then reach out for somebody to help you. We need to finish up the podcast, although this is one of the, it's such an important conversation to have. So what would you like parents who are listening and right now, what would you like them to know? Um, what would you like to broadcast to the world?
I feel like I have an answer for that, man. Not like I was thinking that you're going to ask this question, but spontaneously. I genuinely believe every parent that's listening, and even to those that are not parents who are listening but are supporting a child in, in any capacity as a grandparent and anyone, I think you're all really heroes without capes. Raising a child doesn't come with a handbook, and raising a child that's neurodivergent, beautiful, it does not come with any form of a handbook and does not come with a lot of acceptance in this world. So I genuinely believe every single parent out there is a hero that's not celebrated. And I think I would love for everybody to give a pat on their shoulders or hug someone to acknowledge this. It's a beautiful journey. It's a difficult, challenging journey, but I learn from my parents every single day. They've been my best teachers, and it'll continue to be that way. So truly heroes without capes that are extremely under-celebrated.
Roopa, thank you so much for being here today. I will add your contact information to the podcast description. So if anybody listening and want to contact Roopa, you can find her. And I will add some resources as well that are free. And some of them might not be free, but it might be like a few dollars to be like a member. So I just want to put it out there, and we will have it in the resources. And thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Maya. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for listening to the Empowering Exceptional Minds podcast. For more inspiring conversations and neurodiversity affirming content, be sure to subscribe and follow us on YouTube, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. If you have questions, ideas for future episodes, or if you'd like to share your story as a guest, please reach out. We'd love to connect with you. Email us at edutherapyca@gmail.com or find us at Educational Therapy LLC. Thanks again for spending this time with us. Take care, and we'll see you again next time on Empowering Exceptional Minds.